There's a test a lot of anime watchers used called the 3-episode rule, where you give an anime 3 episodes before deciding if it's worth watching or dropping, but I've always been more of a 4-episode rule watcher, because episode 4 is really where an anime will show its true colors. The studio might pour all of their budget into episodes 1 to 3, only to have the quality suddenly dip on episode 4 onwards, so I'm always on the lookout for what an episode 4 has to offer, and we've just seen the 4th episode of the new horror-themed Digimon series Ghost Game, and I'm very happy to report that not only were Ghost Game's first 3 episodes great, but episode 4 is not causing me to lose faith or panic. If you've ever been a fan of Digimon, I think you need to watch this brand new series. We've already seen a time-stealing monster suck the youth out of an innocent student, seen a tired salaryman kidnapped and mummified, watched one of our main characters fade away, and now in episode 4 saw some gruesome shots of a pumpkin-headed living doll putting a knife right up to some horrified kid's eyes. The thing that's going really well about Ghost Game is that Digimon has always had this dark side to it in the background and has the potential to tell really complex, mature, and yes, spooky stories, but it hasn't really tried since Digimon Tamers, which released 20 years ago. Ghost Game feels like a show that came from an alternate timeline where in the Western world, hype for Digimon didn't fizzle out after Frontier, and we got an incredibly strong 5th season of Digimon, the original run. If you're still on the fence, listen to my episode 4 recap and review discussion, and maybe I'll convince you that Digimon Ghost Game is worth your time. Welcome to the Digino, where every week we talk digital monsters. First, we covered the Digimon Adventure reboot, which followed Tai and Agumon, you know, all those guys all over again. But now we're on to Ghost Game. If you like the sound of that, hit subscribe and help us get to 20,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So I've been talking a bunch on the channel about the Digivice V Vital Bracelet, the sort of Digimon fitness watch that you can order from Japan, and I need to tell you about Zenin TCG, this one-stop shop for Vital Bracelet and Digimon merch. It's a small online shop that sells a ton of Digimon products, but specifically recently is doing some amazing stuff with the Vital Bracelet. They've got carrying cases for your DIM cards, pre-orders on upcoming cards like the Digimon Tamer set, and my personal favorite, the candy-colored VB extended straps. I love these because one, if you're someone with bigger wrists, there's a chance the standard Vital Bracelet might not fit you, but this will, and two, the vibrant colors are sending me back to the early 2000s transparent color tech, and customizing your VB this way really makes you feel like your own unique Digimon hero. It's all around a great site to be aware of if you're a Digimon fan, and get this, the first 50 people to use the promo code TheDigino10 are going to get 10% off their total purchase on Zenin TCG, just because you watch the Digino. So check out their shop and deck out your VB. Thanks Zenin TCG, now let's get to the review. A short amount of time has passed since our central protagonist Hito and his Digimon Gamamon met our second lead Rudy and her Digimon Angoramon in episode 3. This week is really about seeing Hito and Rudy interacting with each other on equal footing now that she doesn't need to be saved and is fully partnered up with a Digimon of her own. It's Halloween and all throughout town pumpkins are everywhere on campus. Our team is putting up decorations of pumpkins when all throughout the first half of the episode we keep seeing in the background students being ambushed by someone or something and then dragged away like lifeless corpses. Hito learns from Nudi that the Digivice has a function that lets you switch your Digimon partner into a sort of incognito mode, this transparent hologram mode where basically normies without Digimon won't be able to detect them. It's cool that it's her who learned this first, but Hiro makes his own discovery in that there's a function that lets you perceive the world around you as not the urban city that they're in, but a sort of grassy forest version that is reminiscent of the digital world, you know, from past series. More on this in a bit, but for now I need to point out that this is super similar to the AR Field premise in a Digimon spin-off from the mid-2010s called Appmon. In that show, the kids would hop into this AR version of the world around them to take on Digimon fights without alarming or hurting civilians. In a lot of ways, Ghost Game feels like it shares DNA with Appmon. Before the horror element of this episode really picks up though, we have a sit down where Angoramon, who seems to be older in age than Gamamon, uses the wisdom that comes with age to explain to Hito a bit more about Digimon, about the digital world, and some possibilities for what happened to Hiro's missing father. Now, Digimon lore changes season to season, so this is the show's first deep dive into its own version of Digimon and the digital world, so listen up because it's pretty important. Angoramon says, some time ago an artificially intelligent computer virus spread online giving birth to various creatures. That's us, digital monsters, or Digimon. We call the world we were born in the digital world. The digital world actually exists alongside the human world. Digimon who pass through the gates that randomly appear sometimes get thrown into this world. Even when that happens, most quickly adapt like me and enjoy their lives in the human world. Hito remembers to ask, some time ago Gamamon suddenly evolved but then turned back. Angoramon replies, quote, that's strange. Digimon normally evolve naturally over a long period of time. Humans might call it growth. I've never heard of one suddenly evolving and then turning back. Now this was really interesting to me, that the standard evolution, the Digivolution that we understand from past seasons, this is a new phenomenon in Ghost Game's universe. They're not used to this ever happening. About the first half, an artificially intelligent computer virus virus is also a very similar concept to what Appmon had, but I'm still intrigued by the setup. Digimon stories tend to go one of two ways. Either Digimon existed for all of time but only recently became known to certain humans, or humans created them. Here, an AI created by humans created the Digimon and the digital world. They're the AI offsprings of an AI virus, which is really interesting to me. I really hope they can land this premise and elaborate. Let me know in the comments what you think about this take on the Digimon origin story in Ghost Game. I'm dying to know your thoughts, and if you think it's too similar to Appmon or Tamer's or something like that. Our lore dump ends here though, because we cut to more scenes of Pumpkinmon carving faces onto pumpkin heads that children are trapped under. Our team does eventually catch him, but not before we get a few horrifying shots that, and I've said this in my past 3 videos, but it bears repeating, where I can't believe this is a show that Japanese kids are watching first thing in the morning. This is absolute nightmare fuel, but I love it. In an effort to keep the human hostages safe, Hiro thinks to take the battle into the sort of digital world, the sort of AR field world. The human hostages don't come with them, but Pumpkinmon does, and so we get a chase scene followed by a battle. Gamamon is able to digivolve again quite quickly, and despite Pumpkinmon being an ultimate level Digimon, the champion Beryl Gamamon lands a pretty quick hit. I have noticed so far the Ghost Game fights are super short, and I hope that's not a trend that is true of every episode. I love the emphasis on story over mindless battles, but you know, I still like a good meaty battle. It is anime after all. I kind of think Pumpkinmon would have gotten back up and could have potentially given our team a beating, but the battle ended here because Hiro takes the opportunity to jump in and reason with the villain again. Pumpkinmon professes he was taking these kids hostage, putting pumpkins on their head and carving a face into them to make new friends in his image. Hiro gives a somewhat cheesy but relatively harmless anime pep talk about how friends can come in different sizes and appearances and they don't all need to look like you. It's enough to make Pumpkinmon chill out, which I will say it was my least favorite resolution to a villain conflict so far this season, but not outright offensive or anything like that. So going back to the thing we discussed at the top of this video, the 3-episode rule, or in my case the 4-episode rule. I think episode 4 was probably the weakest episode so far for me personally, but it wasn't a drastic drop off in quality or animation, storytelling, you know, spooky vibes. It wasn't a betrayal of what the first 3 episodes did. All of those things were basically on par with the first 3 episodes. Like I said, the animation, the spooky vibes. Other than the revelations about the Digimon origins and the AR field style digital world, there weren't these huge story beats this week. I think the show wanted to do this Halloween episode since the timing was so perfect, but the forward momentum of a focused season-long story should start back up again next week on episode 5 with the introduction of our 3rd human character and his Digimon Jellymon. I'm really stoked to meet Jellymon. Ultimately, episode 4 has left me with some answers, but more questions in a good way. It's still early enough to keep asking these big questions. You know, what was this AI computer virus? Is that going to be a big deal moving forward, or just some casual backstory? Let me know in the comments for sure what your biggest questions moving forward are. Even if it wasn't the most mind-bending episode of Digimon, Ghost Game episode 4 delivered on the creepy imagery and themes, possibly pushing the horror farther than Digimon has ever gone with how close that knife was to the kid's face in a few of those carving shots. So to wrap it up, if you're on the fence about whether or not to check out Ghost Game, I highly recommend you follow my episode 4 rule and watch episodes 1 to 4. And if you like what you see the same way I do, just know that I'll be hanging out on this channel every Sunday with a bunch of other Digimon fans to talk about the new episodes and unpack it all. Whether you're a first-time viewer of this channel or you've been watching since the early days of the Adventure 2020 review series, thanks so much for watching. Leave a like if you can. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the next video.